Hey, math friends, our learning target today is I can add and subtract fractions with a negative. So you've been adding and subtracting fractions for a long time where you have to find a common denominator, make sure that whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom, that whole idea. The only difference in 7th grade is we talk about negatives in the game. So same steps as always. First thing you need to do is get a common denominator. Then you can tug of war the numerators. So we're just going to work on add or subtract the numerators. Leave the denominator because that's your common denominator. And then finally simplify. All right, so let's take a look at some that look kind of familiar to you. So if you take 3/6 and you subtract 2/3, we're talking about maybe slices of pizza or slices of pie. We have unequal size pieces. We have 6 pieces in this first pizza and 3 in the second. So the pizza is not cut in equal size. So we have to make sure that we get a common denominator. The denominator that I'm going to use is 6 because 3 and 6 go into 6, which means I'm going to multiply the top and bottom here by 2 with the goal of having the common denominator of 6 here. That looks good. And once I multiply this, I will get that 6. So I'm going to clean this up. That gives me 3/6 minus 4/6. So 3/6 minus 4/6. Now we have the common denominator like you've always done in math. Some things are slightly different now is this subtraction right here, which I said to tug of war the numerators. So we've been working on that skill of if I have 3 kids on team positive and 4 on team negative, who's stronger? Negative. How many extra players? 1. So we're doing that just with the numerator. We get -1. So we tug of war the numerators and then finally leave the denominator. That was our common denominator. And the last step says to simplify. So if you can put it in lowest terms, you should do that. But 1/6 is in lowest form. So our final answer, our final is -1/6. Next problem, find a common denominator that 3 would go into and that 4 would go into. So think about all the factors or things that 3 and 4 would go into. Something that I'm thinking about is 12. 3 and 4 both go into 12. So I'm going to change both of these to 12. So to make them a 12, we'd have to multiply by 4 here. That's my 12. Rule of math says to copy paste the numerator. Whatever you do on top, you do on the bottom. That becomes then 8. Likewise, on the right-hand side, I need to make this a 12. So there's my 12. Rule of math says copy paste. Whatever you do to the denominator, you have to do to the numerator. So that's a 3. So that's called find a common denominator. Once I do that, then, again, please pause the video at any time. I know I say it all the time, but I'm just going at the speed without an audience. That means you have to pause as you go to write. If you're confused, backtrack it, rewind, and so on. Next step says to tug of war the numerators. We have 8 kids on team positive, 3 kids on team negative. So we're comparing these. Who's stronger? Positive. How many extra players? 5. And then leave the denominator. It then says to simplify. But 5 is a prime number, so only 1 and 5 go into 5 as the factors. And none of those go into 12. Well, 1 does, but that doesn't help us. So final answer would be 5/12. So that's our lesson on add, subtract fractions with negatives, right? But we're going to keep going and try some more. So next problem, -3/14 minus 1/2. So 14 is the common denominator here because 2 goes in there. So I'm going to drag this first term down, -3/14, no biggie there. Sign in the middle says subtract, so I'm going to keep that. I need to make this a 14, so I'm going to multiply by 7 to the top and to the bottom. There's my 14, yay. And by rule of math, I had to multiply by 7 on the top, gives me 7. Go ahead, pause that video if that was too fast. Looking for the common denominator. Add my numerators, -3 and -7 results in -10 kids on team negative. And now reduction, we know that we can divide top and bottom by 2 because they're both even. We might be able to divide again, but I know that for sure, which gives me -5/7. Prime, we're done. -5/7, final. All right, here we go. Keep going. This one means opposite. We have to take the opposite of the next sign. This is going to then become a addition problem. Check it out. See how that's an addition problem? Common denominator is 10. So this one is okay, but this needs to turn into a 10 somehow. So to do that, we're going to multiply the top by 5. That's actually the bottom. The bottom by 5 and the top by 5. All right, so here we go. We get 7/10, no big deal there. This turned into addition, sweet. When I multiply the top, I get 5 times 5 is 25. When I multiply the bottom, I get that denominator of 10, which is what I wanted. Now, I add the numerators. I tug of war that. Everything is positive, which gives me 32 on team positive. We leave the denominator, and then we simplify if possible. So we can leave this as an improper fraction, or we can leave this as a mixed number, perhaps. So let's see what happens. If I divide the top by 2, that's 16. I divide the bottom by 2, that's 5. So that would be a possible answer, because that's as far as it can go in terms of improper. But I also can change that to a mixed number. So 5 goes into 16 is what I meant to say. 3 times, which is 15, remainder 1. So this would be 3 times remainder 1/5. 3 and 1/5. You could also, go decimal, I suppose, on that. But we are in a fraction lesson, so I'm going to keep it either as improper, in lowest terms improper, or as mixed. Either way, I'm good with both answers. All right, here we go. What happens in this problem if we don't have a denominator? Then what happens? Well, let's take a peek. We're going to make this a fraction by writing it over 1. And now we need to find a common denominator. I'm going to use 3, which means I have to turn this into a 3, multiply the bottom by 3, and then multiply the top. Make sure you're multiplying by 3. Make sure you're multiplying, not like subtracting or something. So that's negative 15, a triangle there. We got a triangle. Right. We got a positive 3. We got a negative 5. Result is negative 15. Okay. I knew that. Over 3. Boy, that is a mess. I'm going to rewrite that. Sorry. So we get negative 15 over 3. Okay. Sign in the middle is subtract over 5 over 3. Because that one already had that common denominator there. So wait. So we get negative 15 and negative 5. Results in a negative 20 in the numerator over 3. Now that's lowest terms in terms of improper fraction because 3 is a prime number. This would be negative, and 3 goes into 26 times, which is 18. So if we think about 3 going into 20, it goes in there 6 times, which is 18. The remainder on that is 2. So negative 6 and 2/3. Final. That should be negative. So 2 possible answers here, you guys. We can keep it as an improper fraction, cool, or we can change it to a mixed number. Either way, they're both negative. Awesome sauce. This next problem, really super fun as I notice it. This next problem, sweet, has a common denominator already. Boom. So all we have to do is add those numerators. Check it out. So think about tug of war there. If we tug of war those, we have 1 player on team positive right here and 2 players on team negative. So it becomes negative 1. So it's just negative 1/3. Final. That one was easy. Yay! All right, last problems of the day, I believe. Yep, 2 more problems left. It says you try. So it'd be super good idea if you paused the video and gave it a shot to find the common denominator, copy, paste, and so on. Go ahead, pause that video. All right, unpause the video, make sure you're set. Now this problem actually relates to just elementary school when you do your add, subtract, fraction, wherever that happened, maybe 5th grade, 6th grade perhaps. No negatives in here, so this really isn't a 7th grade level question, but we're still going to do it. So 10 is going to be our common denominator because I'm going to multiply this by 2 to the top and the bottom, and that gives me 6 and 6/10. Cool. I'm going to multiply this by 5 on the top and the bottom, and that gives me 5/10. Cool. When we add the numerators, we're left with 11/10. Now that's fine for an improper fraction answer, but I'm going to convert that to a mixed number. So 10 goes into 11. 10 goes into 11 1 time. The remainder on that is 1. So 1 and 1/10. So those are the 2 possible answers in red box or green box. If you love it, heart it. If it's just okay, box it in. All right, y'all. Last problem of the day. Let's see how you did. Common denominator here, we have a 2 and a 4. What could they both go into? Oh, they both can go into 4. So this right-hand side is looking like fabulous. I was going to say fantastic. I was going to say lots of different things. But it looks fabulous. Cool. So now, on the left-hand side, we need to make this a 4. We're going to multiply that by 2. That's my 4. I don't know why I made 6 parentheses there. Copy, paste to the top. Multiply the top. Make sure you're multiplying, not adding. You're multiplying the top. That gives me negative 2. Cool. Over 4. Cool. Now, we have that common denominator. So there it is. It's 4. What about the numerators? Well, we're just going to tug a war that. Negative 2. 2 kids on team positive. Negative. I misspoke. 3 kids on team positive. Who's stronger? Positive. How many extra kids? 1. And 1/4 is in lowest terms. So that is, I can add and subtract fractions with negatives. The key is that you just get that common denominator, and then you tug a war from there. Have a glorious night.